Hello everybody, welcome to Let's Talk Criterion, where we preview forthcoming releases on Blu-ray and 4K here in the Criterion Collection in the UK and the US. David Cronenberg is a famous director born in Toronto, Canada. He came onto the film scene in the early 1970s with his two short art house features, that's the black and white Stereo and the colour film Crimes of the Future. And he's also brought us Rabid and Scanners, which is in the Criterion Collection, taking body horror to a new plateau with its famous exploding head shot. He specialises in-camera horror, relying on an amazing effects crew. Horror had a real resurgence in the 1980s, and Cronenberg led the field with his two films from 1983, two contrasting features, his adaptation of the Stephen King novel The Dead Zone, and of course Videodrome, starring James Woods and Deborah Harry. Distributed by Universal Pictures, Videodrome was the first film by Cronenberg to gain backing from any major Hollywood studio. With the highest budget of any of his films to that point, the film was a box office bomb, recouping only $2.1 million from its $5.9 million budget. But the film received praise for its special makeup and effects. Cronenberg's direction, Woods and Harry's performances, of course, and its techno-surrealist aesthetic, and its cryptic psychosexual themes, it's what carried it through into the cult section. Cronenberg won the Best Direction Award and was nominated for 7 other awards at the 5th Genie Awards. Cronenberg's first exploration of themes of the branding of sex and violence and media impacting people's reality was writing a treatment titled Network of Blood in the early 1970s. The premise for that was a worker for an independent television company who would later become Max Wren in Videodrome. Unintentionally, he found, in the filmmaker's words, a private television network subscribed to by strange, wealthy people who were willing to pay to see bizarre things. Now, he later planned the story to be told from the main character's first-person perspective, showcasing a duality between how insane he looks to other people and how he himself perceives a different reality in his head. Concepts similar to Network of Bloods were further explored by Cronenberg in a 1977 episode of the CBC television series Peep Show in Canada. Cronenberg directed Named the Victim. Now, the film's fictional station, that's Civic TV, was modelled on the real-life Toronto television station CITY TV, City TV, which was known for broadcasting pornographic content and violent films in its late-night programming block. Max enters into a relationship with radio host Nikki Brand, played by Debbie Harry, so named because she represents something greater than herself, both within and without the picture. Harry is, of course, the iconic lead for No Wave CBGB post-punk pioneers Blondie, and casting her in what was promoted as a low-budget Canadian exploitation flick is the epitome of punk rock itself. She's a brand, impossible to separate from her persona, so when it turns out that Nick is a sexual submissive with a penchant for body modification and self-mutilation, the character becomes intertwined with existing cultural fantasies about her rock star persona. She is a performance artist playing the version of herself her stalkers imagined her to be. Interested in sex with them, receptive to control, and open to flirting with sleazy, unbalanced losers like Max Wren. Max the programmer enters into a relationship with this brand to further his channel's reach, and on their first date, Max shows Nikki his videotape of Videodrome, and in their version of Netflix and chill, they cap off their evening with him sewing her ears with a sewing needle and cork. Just something you would do in your spare time, of course. In the famous sequence where Max's body becomes a VCR and takes a videotape, Betamax, not VHS incidentally, with the effects all done in camera, this proves that Cronenberg's unique body horror still stands the test of time. Videodrome is part of an unofficial trilogy of films which continued on with Existence in 1999, still one of my favourites of his, and culminating recently with the intriguing Crimes of the Future. James Woods was attached to the project fairly early on, and he was already a fan of Cronenberg since he'd seen Rabid. Cronenberg had Debbie Harry as a recommendation from one of the film's producers, and after he saw her perform in her video for her song Union City Blue, she was a clear casting choice for Nikki. Other casting included Sonia Smits as Bianca Oblivion, Peter Dvorsky as Harlan, Leslie Carlson as Barry Convex, Jack Crelly as Dr. Brian Oblivion, Lynn Gorman as Masha, Julie Kanner as Bridie James, David Bolt as Raphael, Rainer Schwartz as Moses, and Lally Cadeau as Raina King. So no other major Hollywood stars on that list, and casting was mainly done with Canadian actors. Also worth mentioning is Cronenberg's excellent and long-standing production designer and longtime friend Carol Spire. The film started production in his home city of Toronto, and it ran for 27 October to 23rd of December 1981 and had a budget of $5.9 million, with financing equally coming from Canada and the US. Now, the initial week of filming being devoted to videotaping, it had various monitor inserts being filmed. These included, of course, the television monologues of Professor Brian Oblivion, as well as the Videodrome torture scenes and the softcore pornographic programs Samurai Dreams and Apollo and Dionysus. Now, the video camera used for those monitor scenes was a Hitachi SK91. The film's cinematographer was Mark Irwin. He was very uncomfortable with doing the monitor scenes. He was far more experienced with composing shots for regular film cameras than for videotape, disliking the flat television standards of lighting and colour, and he couldn't compose his shots privately as all the film crew watched the monitors as the shots were being set up. One of the initial intentions for the ending of the film was to include an epilogue after the suicide scene, wherein Max, Bianca and Nikki appear on the set of Videodrome. Now, Bianca and Nikki are shown to have chest slits like Max, from which grotesque, mutated sex organs emerge. And another ending devised featured an orgy between Bianca, Max and Nikki after Max shoots himself, and sex organs were designed for that as well. But Cronenberg decided to excise that scene. Music for the film was from Cronenberg's composer of choice, that's Hard Shore, and it was composed to follow Max Wren's descent into video hallucination, starting out with dramatic orchestral music, and that increasingly incorporated and eventually emphasised electronic instrumentation. Now, Arrow Video released a 4K restoration of Videodrome earlier this year in the UK, and Criterion now announced their 4K release in the same original packaging as their earlier Blu-ray had. It's a 4K digital restoration of the unrated version of the film, approved by director David Cronenberg, with uncompressed mono soundtrack. There's one 4K UHD disc of the film itself, and that's presented in Dolby Vision HDR, and one Blu-ray with the film and the following special features. 2 audio commentaries, one featuring Cronenberg and the director of photography Mark Irwin. The other actors James Woods and Deborah Harry. Camera from 2000, a short film by David Cronenberg. Forging the New Flesh, a short documentary by filmmaker Michael Lennick about the creation of Videodrome's video and prosthetic makeup effects. Effects Men, an audio interview with special makeup effects creator Rick Baker and the video effects supervisor for the film Lennick. Bootleg Video, the complete footage taken of Samurai Dreams, and 7 minutes of transmissions from Videodrome, presented in their original unedited form, with the filmmaker commentary included. Fear on Film, that's a round-table discussion from 1982 with David Cronenberg and filmmakers John Carpenter, John Landis and Mick Garris. Original theatrical trailers and a promotional featurette, a stills gallery featuring rare behind-the-scenes production photos and posters, and essays by writers Carrie Rickey, Tim Lucas and Gary Indiana. And the cover is the same art as before by Ava Wah. All of Cronenberg's films are acts of anthropology. He's interested in human behaviour, in how we got here and where we're going. Videodrome has lost none of its power to disturb, none of its potency as a catalyst for meaningful introspection. It is more an indictment of our predictability and our inability to escape our innate inherited behaviours than an act of real fortune-telling, and remains the rare breed of sociological provocation that might change minds. It's a looking glass, and it also is a modern masterpiece. The 4K UHD release of Videodrome has a running time of 89 minutes, and it releases on Tuesday the 10th of October as existing spine number 248. On the next Let's Talk Criterion, we will be looking at 3 films from Tod Browning, pre-code films from the 1920s and 30s, compiled as a box set called Freaks. So until that edition, from me, it's goodbye and above all, good Criterion viewing.